If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you. It can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many, many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the Anchor app today. Go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm to get started today.
This is Shockwave News reporting live. You can find me online at anchor.fm/Shockwave News. Now let's get right into the news. I got a disturbing headline coming out of naturalnews.com. That's naturalnews.com. The headline reads, Doctor warns the U.S. could end up like Wuhan, China. Viruses don't care about the location. Well, if anybody knows anything and are keeping up with the pandemic, the WHO has finally pulled their head out of their proverbial rear end and declared the coronavirus a pandemic. Well, I got to say to that is about friggin' time. They're about at least 90 days or more too late. The WHO wants to make sure that there's enough people infected to declare the pandemic, the coronavirus, a pandemic. Isn't that special? This is what you get from the WHO or World Health Organization. So anyhow, back to the article that I'm reading from today's headlines. Coronavirus outbreak in the U.S. could eventually grow to be as serious as the conditions in Wuhan, China. This is considered the epicenter of the global outbreak. This warning was given by Dr. Marty McAtery, professor at St. Johns Hopkins School of Public Health, in the interview with CNBC's Squawk Box on Tuesday. What happened in Wuhan, China, could happen here. Why do you think otherwise? Markety said. And that's a very, very, very good point. Why could it happen here? Well, I'll tell you why it could happen here. I'll give you several good reasons why the virus would spread so fast, and it is continuing to spread. We have over 1,100 cases right now in the United States, not to mention people that have not even been tested. It's much higher than that, but just so far, the cases right now of the coronavirus are about 1,100 documented cases. And there's been at least 50 people plus dead that's died from the coronavirus as of right now. March 11th, 2020. The time is about 6:55 p.m. on a Wednesday. First point I want to make is Wuhan, China, and the Chinese Communist government, the Chinese government controls all of China. They started shutting down and isolating the wet market in Wuhan, China. And of course, eventually they've locked the entire country down of China. And so basically what that does is, compared to here in the United States, is China is able to control all of their people via the military. They go in with the police. If you don't obey, the police are going to come and take you away. They'll hit you over the head with batons. They'll shoot you. They don't care. In other words, human rights that we worry about here in this country are non-existent in China. They don't give a crap. If you don't obey the law, into jail you go, you disappeared, and you could die. Either one. That's the bottom line, especially in time of a crisis like this. Second point is that while we're worrying about human rights, we're worried about immigration, we're worried about all of these different things in a time of a major outbreak, a virus outbreak, COVID-19, i.e. the coronavirus, again, China has handled that like a lot of other Asian countries are handling this. They don't care what their people think. They don't care about the Second Amendment. They don't care about your freedom of speech and equal rights and LGBT issues and all these other, as they would say, all these other nonsensical issues. They only care about the safety of the Chinese people as a whole. If you fall into one of the minorities or a majority or whatever, they don't seem to care. They're going to do what's best to preserve the Chinese government, the dictatorial government that the Chinese have. President Xi Jinping is a dictator, and President Xi Jinping calls the shots in China. Whatever he says goes. That's the bottom line. You can yell and scream all you want. They'll just come and take you away. Number 3 point is that here in the United States, we had never, again, going back to number 2 point, we had never closed the borders and do what's necessary. So that's why this disease will spread rampant. We're more worried about everybody's rights and everybody's feelings, a soft, mushy feeling. Ooey gooey, get the warm huggies, the soft, mushy, ooey gooey, warm, silly feeling, rather than worried about stopping a pandemic. Again, I'm non-biased, non-political. I take no sides. But in a medical emergency to preserve the people of the United States, sometimes you must do very, very, very harsh things to save humanity in that country. And again, the Chinese know that, Singapore knows that, South Korea knows that. All these other countries, people can jump up and down, and there's a lot of bad, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bad things going on in China right now. I know this to be fact. I have news and information sourced from alternative news media. I know this. I know what's going on over there. I have a very good idea because I'm seeing the reports coming out. I'm seeing the videos. I'm seeing the footage to what's really going on in China. Some of that bad stuff, if not a lot of it's coming to the United States and is already here. It just hasn't cropped its ugly head up yet. We have to understand that because we're not willing to trample on human rights, we're not willing to forego the First Amendment, Second Amendment, Fourth Amendment. We're not willing to go our constitutional rights. And this emergency pandemic, it seems that the American people would rather have their rights respected rather than protecting all of humanity here in the United States. There's sometimes, and don't get me wrong, I totally and faithfully believe in the Constitution of the United States of America, but we're in a situation now where just about very soon, I'm seeing it, where they're locking down major cities, Los Angeles and New York City. There's a small city in New York City already locked down. The National Guard has been responded. Massachusetts is under national emergency. All these cities, major cities, and smaller ones will be quarantined or locked down at some point in time. Again, I say to you, the thinking person, this is going to spread because, again, in China, they did it too little, too late, and millions of people had already left for it would have been the Chinese New Year, and millions of people had left, a couple million people, and they'd spread the disease basically all over the world. So here in the United States, again, worried about what everybody thinks, everybody says, everybody has an opinion. If little Johnny over here or little Sally doesn't get their opinion, then they're going to holler equal rights and everything else. And I say to preserve humanity and to save humanity, at least here in the United States. What happens in other countries is beyond my control, but I know what happens here in the United States is my business, especially in the great state of Florida. There's certain things we must do, and we must lock things down and put the hammer down. Cancel travel flights, international, close borders. We must lock this down for at least 30 days. But certain things will happen. The economy will crash. People aren't going to go to work. All hell on earth, at least here in the United States, is going to happen if something like this happens. And it's heading that way. It's heading that way very, very, very quickly. And that's where you have to stop and think. You have to use, and I challenge anybody on this podcast, like, subscribe, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, whatever you think. But I challenge you out there to come up with a solution. But that is the only real way to maintain and quarantine a virus so that the virus will burn itself out. You have to lock down. There's no other way. Absolutely, positively no other way. Eliminate flights, eliminate travel. You're not going anywhere for 30 days. You have to just sit back, kick back, and mellow out for 30 days. If you're healthy, great. You'll be healthy at the end of 30 days. If you're not, then you'll have to get treated at the hospital. The hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. They can only handle a few million patients, especially in the ER. We don't have the infrastructure in our hospitals to handle large volumes of patients. So I challenge you to come up with a solution. Like, subscribe. Let me know what you think of this podcast. This is Shockwave News, reporting live. Go to anchor.fm, that's anchor.fm/Shockwave News, and subscribe. This is Shockwave News. I'm out of here.